All right. Hello, world. Hello, YouTube. My name, I like to go by Spacetime Adventurer, and I have had the opportunity to travel around the United States for the last few years. And I come from a upper middle class family, but I like to consider myself a proud American at the end of the day. And I can't help but feel, speaking as an empath, someone who really does care a lot about community. Not exactly sure what my personality type really is, but I studied engineering. Don't know if that's actually what I'm going to do, but I certainly care about the community at large. One thing I can't help but notice over the years, kind of stepping out of my bubble that was my kind of my upbringing, which was a very safe environment, was just the level of poverty, and not only poverty, but just the level of hardship that a lot of Americans seem to be going through. And I'm talking about here in America, not simply third world countries, let's say. I'm really talking about what's going on in America. So had the opportunity to live out in Baltimore for a few years, got to see, explore a lot of the South America, excuse me, the southern part of America, and you just get a bit of Southern culture. And being out in California these days, I just can't help but feel that the homeless problem, I've come to the conclusion that the homeless problem is, nationwide. It's not restricted to any Democratic versus Republican state. It seems to fall under all cultural lines within America. So recently I've come across a Joe Rogan interview by Mark Laita. I decided let's do a reactionary video here, and I'm going to simply play the video, record. Hopefully copyright issues work. If they don't, that's totally fine, and I will simply, put down the video. But I'm curious to know if I will be able to get away with this. I imagine someone like Joe Rogan is going to be quite all right with allowing me to share this kind of content, because I know that he's also someone who cares about the world, about people. He's a people person, and I've learned a lot of really great values from Joe Rogan. I think the main two are kindness and respect, open-mindedness as well. This man, Mark Laita, he seems to be doing really incredible work. I've even attempted to do some of this content myself. You can even check a link to at least two homeless people that I've interviewed. I was going to upload a third video, but unfortunately, the content was too dark for me to upload. But just being out on the streets, being able to kind of be boots on the ground, you can't help but feel just how harsh it is out in America. And the last thing I'm going to say is, as someone who's been able to live out of my car for a few months, I can tell you that it's really, really, really hard to do so. So at any rate, this is a really interesting subject to me. I think this is one of the biggest problems in American society. I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of us vote for different people. I think it's why a lot of people say turn to the maybe the idealism of socialism in some sense, on a more like social level, conversational level. I think it's also why a lot of people have a lot of mistrust in America. At the end of the day, folks, Americans have this deeper underlying problem of human connection, and you can see it with homeless people. So at any rate, let's start this video, and I just want to do a reactionary video to this content. And all right, so with that said, let's jump into the video and see what they have to say.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
How to fix my audio.
When you first started doing these videos, did you have to figure out a way to balance your own mental health with
Am I recording? I'm sure. Yes.
interviewing these people? Because I got to tell you, like, I watched a bunch of videos today in the gym while I was working out, and I felt like shit. And I always feel good after I work out.
No, it affects people in different ways. Some people make, oh my God, my problems are not so bad. My life is pretty great. I've heard that many times. I've heard that more often, but I get what you're saying, because like I'm immersed in it.
Yeah.
What you see on my YouTube channel is 1,200, maybe 1,300 videos. I've done over 5,000. Because not everything I shoot, like with you, you're doing interviews with Elon Musk and Dave Chappelle and Huberman, and they're great. They're going to great. They're big.
First of all, I just want to quick observation about Mark Laita. I love the contrast of body types between him and Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan seems a lot more buff. He obviously trains differently, but Mark Laita smaller guy, but I find that he's really toned. So quick observation there. As someone who idolizes masculine men these days, I do appreciate a man who takes care of himself.
I shoot, like with you, you're doing interviews with Elon Musk and Dave Chappelle and, you know, Huberman, and they're great. You know they're going to great. You don't need to do 8 or 10 in a day like I do.
Right.
Like I'll do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in a day, hoping to get 1 or 2.
But even the ones that you have where the people can barely communicate, they're almost more disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched a couple today of homeless people.
Yeah.
Where, you know, there was this one woman, she was missing one of her toes, and, you know, that woman,
Yeah.
and she's just the movement and the mental health, the obvious signs that she's very troubled and probably on some drugs, and it's just.
Yeah.
Do you have children?
I do. I have 2 daughters, 19 and 20.
I just want to speak. In fact, from my life experience, usually I'm typically more disturbed when I see women on the street than men on the street. Not to say that I'm not disturbed when I see men or anybody on the street, but women in particular I find have very bizarre behaviors when they're out on the street, and sometimes they kind of have this manic thing about them often, and it has to be like heroin or something really hardcore. That plus rape, I think. So it's pretty rough, and just wanted to make that quick comment.
Too.
Yeah, so that to me was like the hearing the stories of how they were all abused sexually and physically when they were children, and seeing what it leads to.
Right. So I'm aware that these things go on.
Yeah.
I've been down on Skid Row for 12 years now, maybe 13 years, and so I know what's going on.
Do you live down there?
No. I live in Pacific Palisades, which is like the exact opposite.
Yes.
I live in Bel Air basically, but then I go down to the worst. I go from the worst part of town to the best part of town. Yeah, it's a drastic change from one to the other. But even when I was doing this before I started Soft White Underbelly, I was aware that this crap is going on to these people when they were kids.
Yeah.
And when I decided, you know, I gave up advertising and wanted to do something that was meaningful to me, I looked around like that's a problem that needs to be addressed.
A quick pause here. I just wanted to quickly say, as someone who has kind of thought about things in a similar way, I cannot really empathize with Mark Laita here. I've thought about possibly doing my own YouTube channel. There's actually one particular YouTuber who I have to find their name, but if I ever do find their name, I'm going to put their link here. But they basically interview people from London, UK. And the video format's beautiful because they ask all these meaningful questions of like, what's the meaning of life and all these beautiful things. And they interview literally anyone. A lot of the people that they have an interview happen to be homeless. And just since then, also having befriended a street dancer, you know, and having had the honor to travel with a street dancer who tend to have a very different perspective on like human emotion, I can't help but feel that like some of the deepest lessons you can learn are out in the streets. Streets are really hard, folks. Really emphasize with what Mark Laita is talking about, and amazing that he just puts in that grind to get a business off the ground and also serve a niche, serve a major problem in society, and he seems to be approaching it in the only way that seems to make sense, which is really having the conversation, because what else can you do? I mean, as we'll soon see in the video, as they point out really well, money is not the only solution.
And, you know, people say, oh, your work's exploitive. You're exploiting these poor drug addicts. Like, I understand there's an exploitive element to it. All photography has that, you know, element to it. But let's say I never did these videos. Let's say we just pretend these problems don't exist. It's all going to continue. And Caroline's kids are going to get molested by the babysitter or by the uncle or by whoever, and it'll repeat the pattern over and over and over. So I figured by putting out these you know, it's disguised as entertainment, but what it really is if you watch a dozen of them, you're going to learn like, fuck, we need to protect our kids. We need to watch our kids. We need to, you know, how many fathers were absent in these kids' lives that I do? Like,
now this is a really big point to hit home. I'm not going to make it too much about me here, folks. I've had the honor to come from a divorced family, and I do say that it's an honor too, because it's kind of been the pain to my medicine in a way. But it can be so much worse, folks. And undoubtedly, one of the biggest sources of pain and difficulty seems like for everyone comes from that relationship with our parents. And what's crazy is if you're anyone like me, perhaps even in my generation, I guess I'm a late millennial, and I'm sure you've noticed this because you're probably the audience who's going to end up watching my content the most. Hopefully, I have other people watching this content too. But essentially, what am I trying to say here? If you've kind of grown up more recently, and maybe you've had the chance to see some therapy, you know, it's amazing to think that as we get older, like we see our parents from a different perspective. Our parents used to be our idols, then they kind of used to be our role models, and then now I kind of almost, I'm not going to say I look down on them. That's definitely not the right way to put it. But I can't help but feel that from certain emotional perspectives, I'm at that stage in life where I feel that I played a role with my parents, and I'm much more, maybe we're more on an even playing field as far as, you know, who supports who. And I'm sure as the years go by, I eventually become the main supporter, provider as my parents get older. And that's a beautiful cycle. I'm grateful to have a family where I can experience that. But it's been hard, folks. Here in America, I mean, some of the stories you hear about these homeless people, I mean, their parents are being killed. They've moved across states, who knows how many times. The level of trauma in these folks is ridiculous. And unfortunately, we live in a homophobic society. There's a really interesting Reddit page I found. And that's what it is, folks. You know, we are scared of being homeless ourselves. I think every American is just trying to live above the tide of bills and you name it. You know, we live in a money-driven society and money is everything. And we get so caught up with chasing money, I feel like we forget how hard it took for us to even understand or manage that money in the first place. So I think it's a lot of folks don't even get to that point in their life because they're too busy stressing over a relationship that they had that they never even get to fully grow up in some sense. So anyways,
like 1% of them had fathers that were in their lives.
Right.
Like, where are the dads? What are they doing that's so important that they can't raise their own kids?
dads, the point here is we got to have both mothers and fathers in our lives equally. That's where the equality matters, folks, not in the other stuff.
Kid.
Well, they're probably fucked up too, which is
that's where it goes.
It's never-ending cycle.
It's generation. It's cycle after cycle.
Have you interviewed anyone and then come back years later and they straighten their life out?
Yeah, that's happened.
Yeah? Who?
I've done 5,000,
right?
And it's literally like 4 that I know of.
Now that fucking blows my mind. I don't know if he's being dramatic here, but he says of the 5,000 people he's interviewed, maybe about 4 people that he knows have recovered. What does that tell me? It tells me that of the maybe dozen or so people that I've interacted with, I haven't interacted with maybe more than 20 people. And in each interaction, depending on which one, it's probably an average of like a minute to 2-minute interactions. I've had a few long interviews, but you know, the longest time I've spent with someone is probably 20 minutes, I think. And even then, if only 4 people out of 5,000, I mean, we can do some basic math here, folks. That is some basic mathematics. 4 divided by 5,000, and I want a percentage, so we're going to give it times 100. I want to know exactly what that percentage is. It says basically 8%. We're talking less than 1% of people were able to change. So even amidst the homeless community, we'll say, there is still a 1% and a 99%. 99% stay homeless, 1% are able to get out. That's fucking crazy. That means that people who I've interacted with, chances are they're back on the streets. I even remember giving a guy $40. Later that day, I saw him on the streets, and that's what that told me. Is that he never ended up leaving and spending that money on the train ticket to go see his family. He instead probably still homeless. Probably just went back to taking whatever drug he was taking. It's hard out here, man. And you know, these people are so resilient. They somehow find a way to survive.
And what has that been like? Like, can you give me an
Yeah, I mean,
an example of one?
And even though they've done it, doesn't mean they didn't break down and relapse tomorrow, today.
Right.
That happens all the time. So
Yeah.
just as they got clean doesn't mean they're going to stay clean. But the ones that I believe in the most, because some people told me they're clean, but I don't buy it. But the ones that I know are clean, they just did it by themselves. They just hold themselves up, and they figured out a way to wean themselves and change their routine and change their environment, and eventually broke through. But I think you need that self-worth. Like you and I have the self-worth to go, I deserve better. I deserve to drive a nice car. I deserve to live in a great house in a great city and have a great job. And I deserve all these.
On this point, folks, I just can't help but feel that in the West, this whole like NFT thing and maybe a few other movements, it seems like we still live in a society that's really driven by ideas, and ideas are for sale. And maybe what's happened in the last few generations in America is that we've kind of sold ourselves the idea that all we need is a job, all we need is a 401k, all we need is, buying all these different material things to find meaning and fulfillment in our lives. When in reality, what we really need is human connection. Now that we live in the age of the internet, when you look at how, Twitch and other platforms have just blown up, it seems like human beings want connection. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm starting this video. And it's one of the reasons why I feel the need to make more content online. I really don't know how good of a quality the content is going to actually be, but I can tell you now, folks, if there's anything I can deliver in this video is hopefully giving y'all some sense of connection. And that's really something that I value. Speaking as I think I am an ENFJ personality type. Think so. I've been trying to figure out what my personality type actually is. And apparently, if I am an ENFJ, it involves just different ways of connecting. The giver, they say. I don't really know how much of a giver I really am, but I certainly can say that I am someone who appreciates learning about the bigger picture of civilization, and I'm certainly someone who appreciates connecting with other incredible human beings, and I certainly appreciate the feeling of knowing that everybody can be doing better than where they are now. So maybe call me an idealist in some sense. I used to consider myself a communist in many ways. I'm an avid historian in many ways too, since you all want to know about me. But hopefully I can inspire at least one person out in the world to simply think more deeply about their situation and recognize that if you are watching this video because you are either alone, bored, somehow this video got in your Twitter feed and you're just simply watching this video because you're not doing anything with your time, I'm simply here to give you a friendly reminder that, first of all, the situation that you're in or that I'm in could be so much worse. We could literally be homeless, like Mark Laita describes. And I think the most important thing to also recognize is that your feelings, your situation, your state of existence in the pursuit of meaning in this what otherwise bizarre world of unknown that we live in, I'm here to simply let you know that you're not alone in that process. And so it's simply a good reminder to know that you're not alone, because when it comes to this problem in particular, self-worth, that probably is the biggest problem of humanity as far as I can tell. And it leads to, jealousy, envy, all the 7 deadly sins, if you want to go down that route, in the more religious or theological approaches to finding these answers to life. But I'm here to simply let you know that, hey, there's more to life than that. You're not alone in the process. And man, you'll feel better when you can help give other people that sense of self-worth, self-meaning as well. So as Andrew Bustamante says, former CIA agent, he says the meaning of life is self-respect. And that one really hits home, folks. And perhaps the biggest problem we're seeing out here with the homeless people, and not just homeless people, but people who are just not living as to their fullest, or perhaps not living in a way that perhaps they could cherish or appreciate. A lot of it may come from that low self-esteem, low self-worth, and it may come from a trauma, self-defining trauma. And if that's all you know, folks, then that's all you're gonna know, you know? So if anything, hopefully this can plant the seed to help. I think Mark Laita already planted the seed in some ways, but you know, planting another seed here to help just let the community know, hey, folks, the problem is not capitalism. The problem is much deeper than that. The problem is psychology and something about human connection, and we got to dive deeper into that. And so perhaps just by shining a light on the problem as Mark Laita does, that's already huge legwork. I mean, so let's keep watching. I know I like to talk a lot, but thanks for tuning in if you made it this far.
These things and have a great woman in my life and all these things. If you have the self-worth, you're going to accept and build those things in your life. These people, especially the ones on Skid Row, the drug addicts, their self-worth is broken. It's broken. And they don't believe they deserve anything better than to live in a cardboard box or a tent on the sidewalk, in the rain, in the winter. And they're doing the drug just to escape the pain of what happened to them.
Speaking as someone who slept out of the car, the reason why I stopped because it was because of how fucking cold it was living out of a car. So imagine doing that year round. By the way, the coldest temperatures, even as south as like Miami, Florida, the temperatures can go down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, people. Okay, you're getting near freezing temperatures at night. Anywhere in North America. I don't care what part of North America you're in or what time of year it is, it can get cold at night, folks.
Them when they were 7 years old with their dad or uncle or brother or whoever.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't fix a childhood. How do you fix a childhood?
When you see a place like Skid Row and you see all these people that you've interviewed, do you try to formulate some way that these people can be helped? Like that we can diminish this problem?
Well, no, when I first really got serious, like 3.5 years ago, was when I started really I was down there every day doing eight interviews a day. I would see somebody who was like, oh my God, your life would be great if you just got clean. I was naive. Right. I was naive. And I started helping them and like, we're going to get you to rehab. And, you know, I spent so much money. Like I've wasted so much money. My own hard-earned money, I just like put towards somebody that had no intention of really ever doing anything.
Well, it seems like it has to come from the individual. It can't.
It has
come
to.
From.
That's what I've learned.
You can't help people by saying, "Hey, you gotta do this."
No, I see all these comments on my videos. Mark, you didn't help this person. I can't change their self-worth.
You'd have to be with them 24 hours.
You'd have to be with them 24 hours a day. You'd have to be spending easy $150,000 at least a year to house them, to feed them, to transport them, to get them therapy, to all the drugs, all the mental health drugs, all the everything they're going to need, doctors, all that stuff. It's a lot of money for one person, and it may not even work.
Right.
So I'm
quick pause here. I really love this whole point. A few months back, I had the honor of talking to one fellow who is not a person but a people, and he helped break down to me just some of the nature of the U.S. Constitution and get a better sense of like what this country is all about at the basic social level. And unfortunately, something that a lot of us don't seem to fully understand today. I would like to argue that conservatives seem to have a better understanding of these things, more or less, because they really care about their Second Amendment, for example, or their First Amendment. But it's more than simply the First and Second Amendment, folks. It even goes down to defining what is a U.S. citizen exactly, and what are the rights that are given to you by this nation. And at the end of the day, folks, I mean, even if we don't live in a great society, I don't know where my viewership is going to fall under the area politically. Hopefully, I can attract people from all sides, including things like libertarians or any other just alternative group that's out there. But I just want to make the simple point that what is my point? I'm about to lose my train of thought again. America, society, homelessness, money. My train of thought's gone, folks, but let's see if it'll come back.
I got 2 kids of my own. I got my own life. I
don't know. I just find that I think our society is a lot more philosophical than it wants to admit. I know that philosophy tends to have a bad rap in our culture. But I think philosophy may be fundamentally ingrained in the fabric of the US Constitution. And it's so funny how here's a great example where I think here's a great hypothetical. And this is something that I'm going to throw out to, say, a Marxist. Because we have a lot of Marxists in our society today, and a lot of their frustration comes from, say, homelessness in America, which I think is fully, it's a worthy cause to fight for. But I think this is a great example to show that even if we were to fix all the material problem, even if we were to give all these homeless people material needs, food, shelter, physical therapy, mental therapy, all the tools that essentially a capitalist society can provide, right? These tools, it still may not guarantee that this person can heal and recover from a emotionally traumatic experience. So what is my point with that? Again, it goes back to philosophy. There's more than life in the material world. There's more than life than what meets the eye. There's more than life than simply money, right? And yet most of us would say that the homeless problem is a money problem, or maybe the homeless problem is a drug problem, which is, the pharmaceutical industry, and, drugs relate to medicine, medicine relates to production, production relates to, industries, et cetera. All these different things interconnect to create this sort of money-driven capitalist world that we live in, right? With pharmaceuticals and other major corporations. But even with all of that, I can't help but find it fascinating that there's still deeper needs for us human beings that can't even be met on a chemical level. And I think, folks, I'm convinced ever more that what people want more than anything else is that sense of connection. And so that's something to think about, folks. If you're out and about and you simply are not having a great day today, the best medicine that has helped me when I have really bad days is when I can have a good interaction with a stranger. Kindness, respect, throw in a little humor, and you got yourself being able to walk away knowing that at least you made one person feel a little better, and vice versa. It's a mutual exchange. And so that's important to have. It's an important thing to talk about. It's an important sort of standard to just acknowledge, because maybe that standard isn't really woven into the Constitution. And why should it be? Because that would be too forceful. And so I do like the Christian faith in this sense. I know that nowadays a lot of us are questioning whether or not we're Christian or non-Christian, or maybe we're just poor practicing Christians. But then you also have church institutions that may not interpret the Bible in the same correct way, and blah, blah, blah. And you have all these different groups who are telling you different things. At the end of the day, folks, I do find it really amazing how there's one thing that Jesus did really well, is that he gave people the freedom of choice to figure it out on their own. And from a philosophical standpoint, if you're trying to find meaning in life, you have the space to figure it out. All I'm throwing out here is the idea that if we're all kind of feeling the same things, maybe we can find sort of mutual common ground to work with, and maybe just kind of, give out that helping hand as part of the communal creatures that we are. We like human connection. We value human connection. We appreciate human connection. So I think it's a worthy goal to have. So anyways, throwing it out there, and let's keep watching.
Bills of my own. I'm doing a YouTube channel and I'm shooting 8 videos a day. Like, when am I going to sit there and take somebody under my wing and save them?
Right.
Oh, the other big thing too is just like you have to be with them 24 hours a day. Like, honestly, probably the easiest way to heal somebody is to like be their friend for them. Can you imagine if you're with somebody 24 hours a day, how much you can influence a person? And I throw the question out to the audience, like, the people who have influenced you the most in your life, exactly how much time do you spend with them relative to other people? I'd like to think one of the reasons why family is so valuable is because of just the amount of time you spend with them, the amount of years you have entire childhood histories with people. So I can't help but feel that the time you spent with people is really important, and homeless folks struggle. I mean, who do they get to spend time with in a given day? Who do you get to spend your day with? Who? You know, and you become sort of a product of your environment in a sense. You become a product of the people you're closest with. So if anything, I want to connect with everyone as best I can. And I also would like, it's been tough because every time you connect with someone, you're also exposing yourself to the pain that they have and vice versa. So it's a really careful, sensitive game. I'm not going to say that's easy to do, but there is value. There has to be some form of value in that, right?
These people are on their phones, on their sofa, texting, leaving a comment saying, Mark, you didn't help this person? I'm the busiest person I know. I haven't taken a day off in over 3 years. Christmas, birthday, everything. I work every single day, either shooting or editing. And these people are sitting on their phones telling me what to do. They can't get off their ass and maybe, clear out their bank account to save somebody.
But even that probably wouldn't do it.
And still wouldn't work.
What do you think could be done?
Well, I mean, it's such a complicated problem. You look at homeless. You have the homelessness problem. You have it a little bit here in Austin, but in LA, it's really bad.
Let's explain Skid Row to people.
Skid Row is a neighborhood. It's probably, I don't know how many square blocks, but maybe it goes from like roughly, because it spreads out a lot, and it's spread out since I've been there. But let's call it like from 4th or 5th Street to 8th Street. This is just east of downtown LA. And downtown LA is cool. It's nice. But just east of downtown is... Oh, no, I know. But it looks like Austin, basically.
I wouldn't recommend people visit.
No, you wouldn't want to...
It's not a place.
No, you wouldn't
go to...
If you
want to go to LA, you don't go... Every other town, you go downtown.
Right. Every other... I'm from Chicago.
I was going to say Chicago.
You spend the whole time... If you go to visit
nice.
Chicago, you spend the whole time downtown.
Yeah.
In LA, you should not go downtown if you're
that's what I'm saying.
That's exactly right. But Skid Row is this neighborhood just east of downtown. That is the...
Yeah, Jamie's got an image of it.
Yeah, there it is. So
let's find some photos of it, because it's kind of an enormous swath of land that's been completely abandoned. It seems like.
But like this girl smoking right here.
Yeah.
That goes on every block. The cops will roll by. Nobody's stopping her.
She's smoking meth.
She's smoking
something,
meth or crack or whatever, fentanyl.
Yeah.
And they're living like that.
Let's find a video of it so you can see the scale of it, because it's pretty intense. When you see people I found out about Skid Row when we were filming Fear Factor downtown. We filmed a lot of episodes of Fear Factor downtown, and and this was early 2000s, and it was nothing like it is now. I'm sure now it's quite a bit more, but even back then, it was like, how is this one area isolated? Like, how is this one area just filled with homeless people and drug addicts and criminals? And I really didn't know until I watched this Netflix series on the Jerome Hotel. And it was about that woman who died in a water tank. Are you aware of that story?
I don't, but I've heard everything.
It's a woman who got off her meds, and it was there was a video of her in an elevator, and it looked like someone was following her, and she was like looking out of the elevator, and then the woman turned up missing, and her family went to look for her. And what it turned out was that's a crime scene. I'm sorry, did I say the Jerome? Cecil.
Cecil.
Where's the Jerome? Is that down there too?
No idea.
I don't know the
Might have
Jerome,
made
but
that
the
up.
Cecil's
Hotel.
Cecil's notorious. The Cecil.
That's the one I meant.
The Cecil is a hotel. I've heard so many stories. My favorite, or the most horrifying, is so many people used to get thrown off the roof of the Cecil Hotel that the little chicken restaurant on the corner used to have a jar where you could put your money in and place bets on what floor the person would have been pushed out of.
Jesus Christ.
Whether it's the roof, the 13th floor, the 12th.
How many?
Oh, I've heard like hundreds. I think. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Stories get exaggerated over the years, but.
So this documentary was about this woman, and she had gotten off her medication, and at first it was like a crime murder mystery, and then as it goes on, you realize, no, this lady had just escaped from her family and got off her meds, and she was paranoid schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And
it's always none of these stories are as simple as, oh, I just got shot or I just got stabbed.
Yeah.
There's mental health that's mixed in. I mean, the whole problem, like, you asked me what the problem is with all this. So you see homelessness. You see all these homeless people on the street in LA or in San Francisco or Seattle or Portland or Vancouver, or you see it in a lot of cities. It's really bad in LA and San Francisco, and the West Coast for some reason has a ton of it.
Socialism.
So, you just, like what LA is doing, you put them up in housing. Problem solved, right? And we're done.
Not really.
No, because you peel back the layer, the top layer of that, underneath the homelessness is drug addiction. Pretty much 100% across the board. None of these people are down and out and just like, oh my God, I'm homeless. That doesn't happen. They're all drug addicts, and even when they tell you they're clean, they're still lying. So you peel back the drug addiction layer, and what are you going to do? Put them all in rehab, which is going to be tremendously expensive, and it's not going to work all the time, but that would be part of the solution, but it's not going to be the solution. So you peel back the layer of drug addiction, you've got mental health. They all have mental health issues, and you can't just magically fix their mental health. You know, the damage was done when they were little kids, when they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, with whether it's neglect or abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, whatever. Just terrible parenting, terrible role models, terrible, and they don't learn this. Like, let's say you got them off the streets. Let's say you fix the drug addiction. You get them therapy for years, and you fix the mental health issues somewhat, but they still don't know how to do all the things that we all know how to do, like build trust in others, gain the trust of others, how to handle.
So like basic human skills that like you learn from your parent if you're lucky. Like 101, we're talking like how to say please and thank you when you buy a banana at the grocery store.
Money. Delayed gratification. They have no concept of that. Everything is just like, how do I make a quick buck right now?
Yeah.
That's the only thing they know. If they have a job interview on Monday, like if I had something like that or a meeting to go to, I'd know how to show up.
I mean, it's like babysitting. This would require a full-time. You basically have to fill in the role of a parent because a lot of these folks didn't have parents, but a lot of them end up being adults by law. And, that's a lot of responsibility, right? And, and no one likes to be treated like a kid either. So, I mean, you're not my dad. Who the fuck are you, right? And so exactly what kind of role can you fill in? This is why I feel like, folks, we can't do it alone. I mean, what Mark Laita is trying to do, I mean, he's a photographer. He's doing interviews. So he's kind of like the reconnaissance. He's kind of making the observation, but there has to be some kind of center for homeless folks that needs to have all the different support tools, and all of that costs money. Who's going to pay, right? Who's exactly going to pay for the service? I certainly can tell you that the taxpayers' money is not being moved to that, So, and I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to blame it on the government for this. But I think ultimately this can be resolved at the government level. But there has to be an incentive, right? And unfortunately, when we live in such a capitalist society, everything is driven with money. Money is a measure of efficiency and optimization. And obviously for something like this, there has to be a incentive. I think the simple incentive is that human capital is your greatest capital. It's the most valuable capital that you have. So, and yet at any organic level, there hasn't appeared to be a system to incentivize people to fix this problem. Maybe that's changing now with the age of the internet. I think when Mark Laita, for example, I'm sure he makes money through ads and maybe even some sponsorship in his videos. So I know that he is financially, at least say, self-sustainable as a small businessman running his own YouTube channel. But that's not necessarily the volume of money that's going to be needed to fix something like Skid Row in LA, California. But I can tell you now, folks, if the problem can be fixed in such a place as bad as that, it really would give us great hope for fixing all the other homeless problems across the country, because I imagine a place like Skid Row is one of the worst. If not the worst, or is as worse as it gets, pretty much. in American soil, on American ground, in American land. We're not talking about a third world country. We're not talking about slums of wherever in the world that you can stereotype. We're talking about here in American soil. So I find that fascinating. And now a lot of us will blame it on the money, and I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's unfair that the 1% make money, but I don't think just getting angry at them and just making it a money problem is the solution. We're gonna have to find a better way to dive in. So amazing. It's amazing.
I'm going to kick ass on Monday. These people don't know how to do anything like that. They probably won't even
Basic
show
skills.
up. They don't know how to be on time. They don't know how to do anything in order to
be on time, brush your teeth, comb your hair, put on a suit for an interview. These little skill sets that I don't know about y'all, but the only people I learned this from was from my parents, frankly, and I had it lucky in that sense.
Advance their
no,
lives.
Otherwise,
I think
I would have known shit, frankly.
It boils down to their self-worth is so broken that they don't believe they deserve anything better.
Yeah.
So if you don't believe you deserve anything better, you could be handed $1 million. Here's a winning lottery ticket. Go cash it in, and you've got $1 million. They're going to fuck it up as fast as you can see it. As fast as you can imagine.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Anyways, guys and gals, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, folks. I hope this video was interesting for you. Please comment below. Please feel free to share your thoughts on what you think about the homeless problem in America. What are any personal stories, anything that you want to share, please put down below. Please keep the dialogue respectful and kind. That I think are really strong core values that I'm going to stick to through and through. And I definitely expect that to be the standard within a video like this one. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all very much. And I have faith that we are going to eventually figure this problem out in our lifetime. This is going to be the problem of our generation, but we have incredible tools like the internet. We have incredible platforms to talk with one another. But let's be kind in the comments below, because these kind of problems, they seem to echo in all domains of controversial sides of society, whether it be family, whether it be politics, whether it be perceptions of money, perceptions of responsibility, you name it. Anyways, I hope this video was of use to anyone. Again, the big thing here is simply let you all know that a lot of the struggles that you're having on a day-to-day basis, you're not alone in that process. I guarantee you that there's another person out in America, as well as the world, who is, chances are, is having almost exactly the same problem as you. And if you're stressed out about family, friends, money, chances are that you seem to have the same problems that a lot of homeless people seem to have as well, but to a lesser degree in a sense. So with that, yeah, shout out to all the people who care about thy neighbor in that sense. And, wishing for a better world. Shout out to, I don't know who to call y'all, but I have really good faith, folks, that we are definitely striving towards creating a better world. It's really cool to have the power of the internet and having these platforms where, I can express how I feel freely and not, be too stressed about it, hopefully. So this is important. Big shout out to Mark Laita. I don't care who anybody says, he has my full support. I also really do support just the conscientious, emotional efforts that Joe Rogan does in his interviews to be kind and respectful through and through. So thank you so much, folks. Send you all much love. Do take care. Peace.